Good evening, folks. This is Deb with another late one because I fell asleep. Okay. Um, I'm still on the mend and I overdid it today painting my daughter's room and got tired. So, um, let's talk a little bit about the WNBA, about the finals. Not a lot because the only thing I did this afternoon was actually follow the game on my phone while I was working. Um, but a couple of things. I'm not beyond, you know, retribution. So it makes me happy that the Phoenix Mercury are down 0-2 to the play in the playoffs. All right, they lost today, and I'm still mad at DeQuitta for what she did with the Fever. I think it was unprofessional, okay, and unbecoming someone who is a supposed legend in the game, and she is. She is a proven veteran, couple of championships, a lot of all-star selections. So she is not a slouch. Um, but I think the way she handled her exit from the Fever, and I think the facts surrounding her exit from the Fever are hinky, to say the least. Okay. So it made me happy that they lost. And it made me a little bit more happy that she only had 4 points in 23 minutes because karma's a bitch. That's the way I look at it. But that being said, this is the first time the finals um, are a 7 game set. So the first 2 games were in Vegas because they are the higher seed. The next 2 games shift to Phoenix. So you could see the series tied up at 2-2. So this would now become, if that happened, this would become it's a 2-2-1-1-1 format, which is the way they've always done it in the NBA. And if it gets tied up at 2-2, then what would happen is that the Las Vegas Aces at the higher seed would host games 5 and 7 on their home court. So we'll have to see how it goes. Like I said, it's the playoffs and anything can happen. But again, today, the Aces beat the Mercury 91-78. So that's that. The next game is Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. And it will be aired on ESPN for anyone who is actually watching. Now, the battle between Phee and Kathy Engelbert. Look, we all have our feelings here, right? I give Phee an immense amount of credit for bringing this stuff up and calling Kathy Engelbert out. I do. And then Kathy Engelbert came back and is basically calling Phee a liar, that she never said those things about Caitlin Clark. So we don't actually know what was said, right? We have, because I'm naturally on the player side, right? I think the league can do better by the players. And no matter what anybody says, there are a lot of folks out there talking about, the league is this and the league is that and the league is trash. And the league isn't trash. It's no more trash than the NBA was during their growth phase. Okay. It's not. All right. But there are some things that we need to talk about. We don't know who's telling the truth because we weren't there. We are listening to this commentary secondhand. And it's gotten kind of personal now between Collier and Kathy Engelbert, to the point where Nafisa Collier refused to meet with her. this is not conducive to getting a CBA agreement taken care of. And, people could say that Kathy Engelbert needs to go, and I agree with them on that count. But the way this will work is the owners, and that includes members of the NBA, would have to say that they want to move on from Kathy Engelbert. That's really the way that would have to shake out. Or it is also possible that in the court of public opinion, the pressure gets to be so much for Kathy Engelbert that she walks away herself. That's usually the way these things happen when you're talking about a commissioner of any sport, okay? So we'll have to see how that plays out. But there is a point I want to make, and it's a point I made in an earlier video, maybe 2-3 months ago, that when we get down to brass tacks, one of the caveats, once these CBA talks get rolling, and they will, one of the caveats for the players to make more money may be that the league doesn't want them playing in off-season leagues like Unrivaled. You want to make the big money in the WNBA, then that might become one of the caveats. There are plenty of sports teams who have required that some players not engage in certain activities in the off season so that they don't get hurt. Because in all fairness, if one of these players were to get injured in Unrivaled, they could not play in the WNBA for, say they tear an ACL and they're out for the season. Why should the WNBA pay their salary? So we have to look at this realistically, okay? That might be one of the gating factors in the negotiations. And certainly, I have said before, and I will say it again, I really love Phee Sabally, but her involvement as a founder and Breanna Stewart's involvement, and I love Stewie. I would love to see Stewie in a Fever uniform as a power forward. Or she's a prototypical, someone like Stewie, okay? Their involvement in Unrivaled makes this a giant conflict of interest when you're negotiating a collective bargaining agreement contract situation with the WNBA. And I think somewhere down the road, that also needs to change. That if you are representing players in the WNBA, you cannot and should not be involved in ownership and the running of a competitive 3-on-3 league. So I have said that. I think there are changes that need to happen on both sides of the coin. So I'm certainly pro-player and want to see them get to get what they deserve, actually. Okay, the league is growing no matter what, okay? We're talking about expansion in 2029 to 18 teams. That the plans are already on the dockets for that. They're not operating in poverty. And yes, while they still may be losing money, let's remember, I'm going to head off at the pass any commentary from people about how they continue to lose millions of dollars by saying once again that the NBA bled $1.45 billion before turning the corner. Okay, and that really did not happen until the 80s. So let's get real here. Okay, all enterprises like this shed money on their way to profitability. That's the law of the land. Okay. I also reject statements that the players are asking for too much. You don't go to the table playing a weak hand. You go to the table asking for as much as you can. And then you will have to come down in your expectations as negotiations move on. But you certainly don't go in lowballing anything. You know, it's the same position I used to take when I ran the advertising department in my company. All right. I went in there and asked for everything I could. Okay. I actually went in with a projects list, not just with some kind of esoteric number. I went in there with a projects list of things that we had to have done based on what the people who ran the business told me. And then we whittled it down from there. But you never go into a negotiation playing a weak hand. That's not the way this stuff works, no matter what anybody thinks. So they're always going to go in there playing the strongest hand they can, because they know they're not going to get what they want. They know they're going to have to make concessions. And the lower you go in, the less you get. So it's a smart move to go in that way. And then finally, you know, as if there wasn't enough misinformation out there during the regular season, it gets worse now in the playoffs and the off season. So now we have a number of people stating that Satou Sabally says she wants to play with Caitlin Clark. So a couple of people even on our feed have said that Satou Sabally said that. Now, she actually didn't say that. This is what Stephanie White was alluding to with people using Caitlin Clark to advance their own causes, okay? This is how all of this chatter started. Satou Sabally has liked several posts on social media that talked about how much Caitlin Clark has contributed to the WNBA's growth. Okay? She's gone on to social media, made some comments, and liked those posts. So immediately, two AI content creators come up with this cockamamie video scheme about how Satou Sabally in free agency wants to play on the Fever with Caitlin Clark. There's even one cover out there of a video that says, "I'm coming." Okay? First of all, in order for Satou Sabally to come and play with the Fever have to go after her. The Fever have to want her to play. There is no movement on that front right now, okay? Right now, they're in the middle of the playoffs. It's certainly a time when those who aren't in the playoffs are drawing up plans for players to come onto their teams in the offseason, and I'm sure there is a list being drawn up by the Fever of people they would like to see on the team who are going to be free agents. But none of that is happening. And Satou Sabally actually said no such thing. These things can be easily verified or debunked. Okay, if there is not an article out there from a reputable source, then it didn't happen. The only sources I can find that are carrying those statements and those stories are two AI YouTube content creators who do that to get hits. Satou Sabally has actually said that she wants to play in New York with her sister. Okay? Her sister plays for the New York Liberty. Satou Sabally says that's where she would like to go. And that also doesn't mean that that's where she is going to go, because the New York Liberty has to want her and want to bring her on board. So would I love to see Satou Sabally on the Fever? I wanted them to try to get her before the playoff deadline, but it didn't happen. And I still say that the Fever needs a power forward. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I want to dispel some of the stuff that's going on out there, because there is a lot of this is now moving into the offseason. There's going to be so much garbage out there that you cannot take any of what you're seeing in the world of YouTube content creators as fact until you can verify it. And none of these content creators, and I watch them because as part of my confirmation of what they're doing, I have to see what they're saying, or I'm not doing it properly. Okay? There is no statement out there that she wants to play with Caitlin Clark. This is, again, someone using Caitlin Clark to get hits on their channel. So that's where we are tonight. Again, we will be back tomorrow. I do have video, and I will be showing some video. And I've also got at least one game on the list that's a full game from Caitlin Clark's high school years. So we'll show some of that, and we'll put that in the links. But we will keep an eye on the CBA now. This is the new movement here. And at some point, the two sides will have to meet, and the drama will have to stop, okay? Because right now we're in the she said mode, and no one knows who said what. And all Caitlin Clark said was that Napheesa Collier made some valid points, and Napheesa Collier certainly did make a lot of very valid points. Regardless of who said what, Napheesa Collier's points were spot on, okay? That it doesn't appear that Kathy Engelbert values the players. And I would agree with that. As I said, and I'm not going to back down from it, Kathy Engelbert's got the people skills of a Q-tip, okay? And the one thing you have to have when you are dealing with players is an appreciation for what they bring to the table. Without these players, there is no WNBA, okay? It's as simple as that. It is not just a case of the WNBA giving them a venue, because the venue means nothing without people playing in the league. So we all need to come to the table. We all need to avoid a lockout. It benefits not the league nor the players to get into that situation. You know, the rhetoric needs to tone down now, and they need to get together and talk about what they can get, what they can put on the table. We'll talk about what they put on the table and what's doable and what isn't doable. Come to some kind of an agreement. The current CBA expires on October 31st. There's plenty of time. This is October 5th. So let's put all this petty infighting aside and get the job done. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great night. See you then.